Thank you again, Lorna. So next I would like to welcome Mike Harwin to talk to you about educational visits and school trips. Mike's session was also recorded, but Mike is online, so he should be able to answer any specific queries as you raise them in the chat bar. Over to Mike. Thank you to our producer.
Okay, welcome to a short presentation outlining the role of the Educational Visit Service. The Educational Visit Service consists of 2 staff members. That's Tracy Erasmus, she's in the admin role, and there's myself, Mike Harwin. I'm the Buckinghamshire Council Outdoor Advisor. The contact details for Tracy and myself are on screen now, and that will be circulated after. We are here and available to answer all your questions and queries and to deliver high quality support and training to schools as and when required. A good place to start would be to look at the definition of an educational visit. That's any activity that involves young people whenever they leave the school premises, i.e. taking place outside of your school grounds. This activity will have a defined educational aim or purpose. The DFE, they classify visits into 2 main types. 1 would be routine visits, and 2 would be visits that need a more detailed risk assessment and extra planning. Routine visit approval is delegated to the head teacher of a particular school. Trips that require extra planning and risk assessment are the ones that we, the Educational Visit Service, typically get involved with and support more readily. So what's our Educational Visit Service offer? Well, we oversee educational visits and associated support in Buckinghamshire schools and across some borders for our multi-academy trusts. We purchase and support the Council's IT system for approval. This is called Evolve. We provide training and guidance for staff, governors, educational visit coordinators, we call them EVCs, and head teachers. We directly approve the more complex visits, i.e. those with residential, overseas and or adventurous activities included. And we provide support and backup if required following a school visit emergency. You'll see from the breakdown of visits in a typical year that Buckinghamshire has a high proportion of complex visits, those ones that are highlighted. These are defined as overseas, residential and adventurous activities and consist of the visit types that require local authority approval. Day visits, which are usually less complex, they're considered to be more routine and they're generally approved by the head teacher. So you can see that in a typical year we have upwards of 2,000 complex visits to approve each year. I mentioned the Council's IT system for approvals earlier, called Evolve. We like to think of it as a one-stop shop for all your planning needs. So all visit leaders in school have access to an account to plan and upload their visit information. All up-to-date policy and guidance resources are on the system. Its primary purpose is to document the approval chain for any particular school visit. All visit planning is stored for evaluation and evidence should it be needed. All contact numbers are accessible in the event of an emergency, and it's got a useful report function if governors or Ofsted need to see the broader curriculum that you're offering. Buckinghamshire Council, like most local authorities across the country, have adopted the Outdoor Advisors Panel, the OEAP's national guidance document for all guidance relating to educational visits. It's web-based, it's an information document, and it's continually under review and redraft, and it can be accessed at the following web address, oeapng.info. My role here is to interface and interpret this guidance for schools at a local level. So we have a local implementation of the national guidance, and it comes in the form of Buckinghamshire's Employers Guidance. It's a much lighter document with all local updates and amendments included, and schools that buy back into the Educational Visit Service are expected to follow this guidance as well. You'll see from national guidance, if you look into it, that it clearly identifies a number of different roles at local authority and school level. As you can see, there's an outdoor education advisor overseeing the broader scope of approvals. That's my role. Non-local authority schools, academies or trusts would need someone operating at this level for compliance if they don't buy back into our service. At school level, there are roles for the governing body, the head teacher, the EVC, the visit leader, and others on the visit, for example, parents or volunteers. And within the Educational Visit Service, we offer full training for all these roles. Staff leading outdoor visits at whatever level they need to be should be suitably trained and competent at the level they're delivering at. Part of my role is to monitor a proportion of all visits and offer training and advice to meet the needs of the service. I'll assess a range of visits, outdoor providers, check risk assessments, insurance and staff competencies. And the aim is to ensure high quality, safe outdoor provision that's accessible to all pupils in Bucks. Each educational visit should be accompanied by an appropriate and proportionate risk assessment. These risk assessments don't need to be massive, but should be suitable and sufficient for the task at hand. Adventure and residential activities will require a more complex process of risk assessing than day visits. The Educational Visit Service will interpret and monitor a proportion of these risk assessments and make sure that what is going on during the activity is duly reflected in this documentation. A quick update for you on the COVID-19 situation. All UK day visits were okay to start from the 12th of April, and residentials were okay from the 17th of May, and that was subject to some COVID arrangements in place, i.e. that bubble integrity is maintained, teachers have their own single rooms, and pupil dorms are no greater than 6 per pupil per room. Overseas visits are unable to commence at the minute, and they're looking at a start date of no earlier than the 5th of September for these. Educational Visit Service have been supporting schools in many ways throughout the pandemic, and the next few slides will give you an idea about how we've been supporting schools in getting out and about again. The area we've been looking at is the local learning area. We've been trying to remove some of the barriers that teachers find to getting out and about. So we've introduced training for the local area visits with simplified planning and procedures to make it easier for staff to take out groups to areas close to the school and to support their learning. So areas a few minutes away from school might include the local woodland, some shops, the library or a play park. We have a local learning area policy. It's ready to go for most schools with minor training and implementation required. During lockdown, we've also produced a series of maths trails for Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3, each with an associated planning pack in 6 of the major towns across Buckinghamshire. We've got Aylesbury, Chesham, Amersham, Wendover, High Wycombe and Buckingham ready to go. They're free to use and reproduce, so do email me or Tracy for a pack if you would like one at school. We've also produced some remote outdoor education activities that you may still have a use for some instances in school. They're designed for Key Stage 1 or Key Stage 2 pupils, and they're basic entry-level outdoor activities that either parents or children can use on their own, or they can be completed in school with a member of staff as a short half-hour session if you'd like. We've also found some free outdoor learning resources. Many are available online. There are some of the best links that I found embedded in this document here. Some really practical starter ideas for a range of ages, and we're recommending them to staff to find suitable outdoor support materials if they like. There's also a series of books for about £25 each. They're the National Curriculum Outdoor books for Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. There's over 60 practical lessons per book. We do, in the Educational Visit Service, we do have a loan set that we can lend them to you if you'd like to borrow them for a short time. Update on the insurance situation. Schools are unlikely to find cover for any COVID-related cancellations at this time with any insurer, but schools that take out Buckinghamshire Council insurance do automatically qualify for their usual school visits insurance until the end of August 2021 with no extra charge. There's a separate proposal form that you do need to fill in if your activities are adventurous or residential, but there's still no charge for these. And there is no form required for routine day visits. Non-Buckinghamshire Council insurance schools should check with their own insurer to make sure they're covered for visits this term. And I'll leave you with a quote from the 2008 Ofsted report into outdoor learning, which concluded that well-planned and integrated outdoor sessions led to a significant increase in the achievement in pupils. And this is because memorable activities do lead to memorable learning. That's it from me, and I'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, John. That was very comprehensive. Yes, school trips are that exciting part of being at school if you're a student. We haven't had any further questions in the chat bar. Can I just confirm that people should be finding it as a question and answer bar rather than a normal chat bar in Teams? We are getting a few through, but not very many. So hopefully you will be able to find that question and answer button on your screens. Our next speaker is actually going to be Jonathan Carter from our finance team. Jonathan is going to talk to you about the grant applications and all things finance. Over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. If we can just move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. Although it does, everyone keeps saying I'm going to talk about grant applications, this was a bit of a surprise to me. Unfortunately, I haven't prepared anything on grant applications for this particular session. If you have any obviously specific questions about grant applications that we might be able to help you with, if you'd like to raise them in the Q&A section, and I'll see if I can answer them now. If I can't, then obviously I'll take them away and we'll come back to you with some further guidance. So yeah, a little bit of a surprise. So today, I guess, is going to be very much about some of the challenges that we've been going through, and I appreciate that has had a knock-on effect on yourselves, but also some of the solutions and some of the ways we're trying to overcome those challenges. So I'm just going to talk a little bit around income, which I know is a particular challenge, the change to the bank contract, which will certainly be a challenge for some of you at the moment, funding and grants, some good news, hopefully, for schools there. Support to schools, how we're changing our service to try and overcome some of those challenges and improve our service, and some of the training opportunities that are coming up in the next term. Okay, if I can just move on, thank you. So income and coding, we obviously appreciate that it has been a significant challenge since we've specifically since we've moved over to the new cash receipting system within Buckinghamshire Council. Unfortunately, some of these challenges have come as a bit of a surprise, and the way we'd communicated to you hasn't unfortunately been the way things have worked out. Myself and my team are working very closely with our accounts receivable colleagues to try and overcome these challenges. And we are hoping that some of these changes will come in from the 1st of July. So meetings are ongoing. We expect the coding of income to be resolved as at that 1st of July date once the changes to the system have been made and fully tested. So what you should start seeing is anything that comes in via the bank account, via the checks that you send in, should start to see those coding coming through. So hopefully from July onwards, you won't need to obviously journal that income into the correct code. So apologies on that particular situation, and say it wasn't as we expected it to be. So we're quickly making those changes, and we're going to continue to work with our accounts receivable colleagues and accounts payable to try and resolve some of these issues going forward. And hopefully in the future they will come and talk to you as well to help you along. In terms of missing income, I'll just quickly talk about that. So you'll have seen we put something out in our recent newsletter around missing income. If you have got any income that hasn't been allocated to you, obviously check the 943750 code, because a lot of it is obviously going there at the moment. But if you just email the Finance Service Desk mailbox, they can help you with that. Unfortunately, it's not something my team can look into for you with the new system. Okay, moving on. So the banking contract, again, this has been a huge task. I just kind of want to go into some of the background around the banking contract and why we've had to make the change over to Barclays. So as a corporate company, effectively, we have to have a contract with our bank because of the value of that contract. That contract was coming up for renewal, especially with the introduction of our unitary colleagues. That has probably brought that forward a little bit as well. So it's not something we obviously chose to do, it's something we have to do, unfortunately, and that has meant a number of changes for schools that we've been trying to work through with our colleagues at Barclays as well. So I kind of just wanted to set out where we are now. Things are starting to progress rapidly at this stage. So for our checkbook school colleagues who are under the corporate contracts, there will be some that have their own individual arrangements with banks, whether that be Lloyds or any other bank privately. So for those, we've been talking recently about Barclays.net, which is the online banking part of the system. Unfortunately, again, we have hit some issues with that particular system, and we are having a meeting this afternoon to talk about that. So I will email out to those checkbook schools that are affected by that to let you know what the next step is on that particular part of the journey. Again, stationery, we have no idea quite what's happened here. The stationery was ordered, so the checkbooks and the paying books well in advance of the changeover, but they do not seem to have appeared. So again, they have been reordered. So hopefully they will start to appear with you very shortly. Again, I'll be checking with my colleagues at Barclays this afternoon on our progress with that. So please bear with us. We will get back to you in terms of what the next step is, and hopefully we can iron out some of these issues pretty swiftly, so we can all get back to the normal day job. So for non-checkbook schools, the impressed accounts, again, please just hold fire. We're trying to get past the checkbook school issues first. The mandates, obviously, you've sent in. For those that have sent them in, they are starting to be processed. There are over 100 impressed accounts, so it is taking a little while just to get through that. Once we are ready to transfer you across to your new bank account, we will obviously let you know. So just keep carrying on doing what you're doing. And we'll let you know when the time is right for you to move across. Okay, I think that's all I can say on the bank contract at the moment. So if we can, next slide, please. So funding and grants, hopefully some good news for you here. I'm sure a number of you noticed the school budget share hasn't been loaded onto your accounts yet. That will happen by the end of this month. I'm working on that one at the moment. So you will obviously, once you receive your next set of reports in early July, you will see those figures up here. So don't panic. There's nothing wrong. They will be there. It's just finding time to do some of these tasks at the moment. And then we have a long list of grants that are due to be paid. Again, something I've been working on literally today. So you've got your final instalment of PE sports grant for the summer term, and obviously we are expecting future funding for the autumn, spring term and beyond, but those announcements haven't been made yet. So that will be coming through to you. Teachers pay and pensions. So this came as a bit of a surprise to us because we thought this had disappeared. But for nursery children and sixth form aged children, there will still be a separate grant that you receive for teachers pay and pensions. So it won't be very much compared to what's obviously going through your main budget. But for those mainstream schools, just keep your eye out for that. That does mean we will be reinstating the codes that we said we were going to delete, and we'll advise in what you need to do around that, just to get those back up and running if you have closed them down, and obviously any adjustments you will need to the salary modeler as well. But a bit of good news, I guess there's some additional funding coming your way for those. So again, keep your eyes open for that. Devolved formula capital grant. So at this time of year, every year, obviously that comes through. There's no significant changes this year. So again, kind of watch this space on that. Now we have a long list of all the various different COVID grants that are due to come out to you. So as you'll see from the list, we've got the workforce grant, the mass testing grant. There aren't actually an exceptional cost added to the list, and then I checked the list for Bucks and we haven't got any more claims to pay yet on that one. The final instalment of the catch-up premium that's been announced. Obviously, there has been a recovery grant, I believe they call it, that's recently been announced. But at this stage, we have no further details. So again, it's a bit of a watch this space on that. I know there's a lot of talk about tuition, so we're not quite sure how much comes directly out to schools or not on that. But that will be the final instalment that you'll be expecting. The free school meal additional costs. So you'll remember, obviously, back in January, when we all went back into lockdown again, effectively, the additional costs around providing effectively those sort of hampers and the additional costs where you were buying through schemes like the Black Hawk system that we were using within Bucks. And then there's a small amount for the National Tutoring Programme. I think there's only one school that's affected by that. So lots of money to come out to you, or lots of individual amounts anyway. So watch this space on that. Again, you will see that in your reports in early July. Just move on to the next slide. So then by the end of July, we're anticipating, because typically this is how it tends to arrive, that at the very end of this month, we will then receive the Universal Infant Free School Meals Grant and the pupil premium, the summer term instalment you'll receive as well. But again, we are waiting those. So I can't see any reason why it won't be by the end of July, but they should be through as well. So all good stuff on the funding front. Support schools. So I just kind of wanted to give you a bit of an update on what we're doing within my team, within the Schools County Support team. So we started to look at this back earlier in the year about having specific named officers for each of our schools, because we feel this is quite a good way forward. It means that you know, one person, the calls can be very easily allocated to individuals. You'll hopefully get to know that individual if you don't already know them, and they will get to know you as a school. Is the idea, and they will obviously monitor your returns, make sure that everything's coming in, and if not, they'll give you a friendly call, I'm sure, just to chase those up. So just to kind of let you know, so Teresa Jackson will be looking after the Aylesbury Vale area, Alison Philp the Wickham area, and Julie Crook the Chiltern South Bucks area. So hopefully, if you haven't already met them, you'll get to know them in the coming months. So effectively that will come into play really from when you come back after the summer, but you'll start to probably notice them contacting you at different times. The other thing I just wanted to reiterate is that where possible, if you can just make sure you send all your queries through the portal forms. I know it's something that was talked about over the last year in all the things we've been going through. We do feel it is working really well that way, because it means there should only be really one way into us, and it is helping us to manage the levels of calls, and we are bringing them down now. We've got to a sort of much more manageable level, so I'm really pleased for that. So yeah, if you can just keep pushing your way through the portal forms, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. It's something we are working with our colleagues in other parts of finance as well to try and be as joined up as possible with the way that you can contact us. And hopefully we'll pull together on that one. Okay, next slide. So I just wanted to quickly touch then on the training that's available. And I know some of you have already seen it. We've already started to publish. So the Q2 forecasting workshops that we run in the autumn term. So for anybody who's new, you might not be here today, but we are running a new users session around the salary modeler in late September, and then the normal Q2 forecasting, so how to use the tool and how to submit your return, is going to be in early October, ready for the submission sort of towards the end of October. The booking forms is now open, as I say, via Eventbrite. What I would suggest is, if you aren't already, follow us through Eventbrite. So anytime we release any new training sessions, any of the support sessions that we've been putting on, which we feel have worked really well, I have to say, the response to the final plan submission was really great this year. You know, the quality was excellent, and everyone returned in a really good time. So we feel those sessions have been really helpful to you and really helpful to us in the long run. So we're really glad to put those on, and this new way of working has certainly helped us to do that. So yeah, subscribe to our Eventbrite link, and then hopefully you'll see any courses that come up, and if they're of interest to you, obviously you can book on sooner rather than later. So watch out for that one. And then there will be a New Finance Day. So for anybody who's relatively new, who hasn't been on the New Finance Day, that course will be available. The date is still to be confirmed. We obviously need to see whether we can hold that event in person, which is what we would prefer to do, or whether it will need to be a virtual event, and what facilities we can book at this stage. But always keep an eye out on our training page. You know, we're always releasing stuff. We are looking at doing a session on fraud very soon as well, in connection with Barclays as well. It's one of the things that they like to do with other parties. So as far as I can see from the Q&A, at this stage there are no questions, but I'll just pause just in case.
Quite a few questions for you, so
okay.
to you and you could answer them. Some of them have been answered as you've been going through. And firstly, can I just apologise for my slip in your introduction? I meant an update on funding and grants, not grant applications. So
brilliant. So good.
To do any more work at the moment. Thank you. Okay, so we did have a question. Is there any confirmation of the next round of the COVID catch-up payment, which I think you said there's no more information on at the moment?
No, I think what they're talking about there is what's called the kind of recovery grant. So yes, as I say, the notification I think came in, or the announcement was around February time, but at this stage we haven't seen any further guidance. We are constantly checking for that one because it is a regular question. But again, you know, what you see generally on the government website and what you hear is pretty much what we get. We don't get any early warning on anything. So yeah, we watch this space on that one. As I say, the COVID catch up, the third instalment is coming through any day soon. So hopefully that answers that question as much as we can at this stage.
Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, so with all of the questions, we will try and get back to all of them today if for some reason we run short on time. But the next question is, when will the income get posted, as it was in the transaction report but not the CFR?
Okay, sometimes what we are finding is it depends how it's been posted, how close to the end of the month. So sometimes things are hitting one of the reports but not the other, and that is a specific problem we've noticed this time round, especially that because of the way the two reports are run, one will pick it up because it was posted on one particular day, but it might not have actually been entered until a later date. So it is a bit of a flaw in the system in the way that works, but hopefully you'll see that in the next month's reports if you haven't, if you've only got one part of it at this stage.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. We now have somebody who needs petty cash in school urgently. Can they use the Lloyds checkbook while they're still waiting for the new one?
Yes, yeah, that's fine.
Fantastic. And can you also advise how they pay cash into the budget? Do they still need a RACL?
Rackle. So Rackles we aren't using anymore. This was part of the changeover in the cash receipting. So if you haven't already, please request a pay-in book. Again, there have been issues in receiving those from Barclays. That's the best way to get it in, and then hopefully with the changes that we're bringing on board, the coding should happen through that as well, is my understanding.
Okay, thank you. And next one, can we carry on using the Lloyds Imprest account, i.e. cheques, etc.?
Yes. Yeah, until further notice, until you're told otherwise, carry on using the Lloyds. Obviously, unfortunately, the timing that we said hasn't been possible with all the challenges, as I say, we've been going through. But yeah, until you're notified otherwise, carry on using the Lloyds until we say that we're ready for you to switch over.
Thank you. And the next one, is it possible to get a deposit cards, as we can't currently pay at post offices? They don't do manual payments.
Ooh, I'm not quite sure what the question is. The best thing you can do is if you can raise that as a call, and we'll come back to you on that. We'll do a bit further investigation in terms of what exactly you're trying to do. It's probably the best way.
Thanks, Jonathan. And did you say the Imprest bank account mandate is available to download?
So the Imprest, what you should have had is the form I sent out via email to each of the schools. What was available to download was the bank account details through the Anycom system. If for some reason you haven't received the bank mandate, then obviously get in touch with us and we'll follow that up. But I know we have been chasing schools this week for missing mandates.
Thank you. And will the credit card transactions from April start to come through at the end of June, Jonathan?
Yes, so we're talking about purchasing cards. So yes, we've got the file now to process. And what we'll also look to try and do is obviously get last month's transaction as well. So yeah, we should be back on track with that one. Unfortunately, we're having trouble accessing the data at the moment within my team, so we're relying on others to give that to us. So apologies. We are looking to get back on track with purchasing cards this year and not get into the situation we did last. But we are having some technical issues with that one.
And there's one more. I have a paying book for cash. Can I use it for cheques as well?
Yes, should be able to. Yeah, I mean, we have introduced the scanning system, which we think is the easiest way, but that doesn't necessarily stop you from using your paying book to pay cheques in as well.
Thank you, Jonathan. I think from all the questions, your session has been really interesting and informative.
Brilliant.
There has been a lot going on, obviously, in the last few months, and it may be that you could look to put on a drop-in for people in the near future. We'll leave that with the business development team to sort with you.
Brilliant.
Again, virtual clapping. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you,
for
everybody.
your time today.
Thank you.
We're now moving on, and we're back on time with all those questions and a fantastic thorough presentation from Jonathan. We move to an insurance update with Rachel Ruddy, a very topical subject I'm sure you're keen to know more about. So please may I welcome Rachel Ruddy. Over to Rachel.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me okay. If I could have the first slide, please. Great. So following on from Mike's introduction earlier on School Journey and the final slide on insurance, as of the 1st of September, we'll be referring back to the original way that we used to undertake the School Journey insurance. So schools will have two choices to take out cover. They will have the choice to do an annual policy, in which case we will issue you with a form to complete, or they can do an ad hoc basis. Both of them have exactly the same premium relating to it. The difference is the way that you send them through to us and the way that we bill them. Obviously, it's better to do an annual policy. It's a one-off charge, and then we will pick up any adjustments at the end of the year. But it's entirely down to schools' choice as to how they provide us with the information for the trips going forward. One of the other things that we're looking at on School Journey is to amalgamate and relook at all the categories to make sure they're more appropriate for the level of risk. Hopefully this will make it easier for schools to decide what level of cover they need going forward. As previously, if you have insurance with your provider, you don't need to take out the council insurance as well. We're happy to look at the policies that you're getting to make sure they reach the requirement of personal accident cover, but otherwise you're entitled to do that. As way of following on from Mike as well, in respect of COVID, we still have been unable to find a provider for School Journey insurance which will extend for COVID related cancellations. I know that some providers have emailed schools and said that they will provide either refunds or alternative dates should a school need to cancel. I have not yet seen anything in a contract giving full details of exactly what that entails. So please be wary until you actually see it in a contract from your provider before you actually book any trips going forward. It is a concern to me, and it is one that we are raising externally as well. Could I have the next slide? So our next topic, motor occasional business use. As of September, we will no longer be offering this direct to schools. Renewal will be offered direct by Marsh, who are currently covering the policy for us. All schools will receive a separate email offering the cover, and then it will be for the school to decide whether they want to continue with the cover and ensure any payments for the premiums. The idea is on this is that it will make it a lot easier for the school to get the policy, and also where schools decide to insure elsewhere, either becoming an academy or potentially via the RPA, there will be no need for cancellation. So the policy will extend beyond the time that you're with Buckinghamshire Council for the rest of your insurance. If you've got any questions on that, by all means give us a call. We will still be available to cover any queries on either coverage or claims going forward. We're not cutting you loose entirely on this. It just makes more sense for both the schools and the insurance team to have this policy offered in a slightly different way. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Just some general housekeeping as we come towards the school holidays. As it says, please make sure all movable and high value equipment is locked away properly. Following on from Jonathan's presentation, make sure all your banking is finalised. We recommend that safes are emptied totally and left open. What we have found is that thieves get into the schools and cause a lot more damage and trying to remove a safe than it's actually protecting. So it's just something to consider going forward. Obviously, make sure everything is locked and correctly closed. If you've got hires during the holidays, exactly the same as during the shorter holidays, the half term, the weekends, make sure that you're closing off school so that they only have access to the areas that they need to. There's a lot of information on property services added in respect of COVID closures, most of which is still relevant and good housekeeping going forward. My team have asked me to just remind schools as well to ensure that claims are submitted within timeframes. We're still getting a lot of claims coming through from schools that are out of the timeframe, and we are having to refuse these going forward. Can I have the final slide? Just a couple of pre-warnings, having spoken to schools. Because of COVID and everything going on, both for ourselves and the schools last year, we didn't ask schools to update their sums insured for contents. We'll be asking for this in September. We'll give you a couple of months to actually get those details through to us. We just need two very simple figures, one for your computer and associated equipment, and the other for everything else of your contents. I know a lot of schools have said, we'll probably try and start doing that during the summer holidays, so that's just a heads up that we will be asking for that when you get back in September. Again, we'll be asking for the usual medical malpractice form in September, so we will need that again within 2 or 3 months. Hopefully that won't be too onerous. It's the same, predominantly same information that you've provided us previously. If schools do need a copy of what was provided to us last year, please let us know and we can send that out. Just as a reminder more than anything else, renewals for maternity and accident policies are now due on the 1st of April, following the change of the policy start date. So these will be issued towards the end of January, and we'll try and update schools more in September when we do the next round of meetings and presentations to ensure that schools are aware of what's going to be needed from them in April. And that is me. So if there's any questions.
Thanks very much, Rachel. We do have some questions in our chat bar, if I could ask those of you. Somebody's actually said, what is motor occasional business use? Can you say like that? Okay, so as it stands, teachers and staff are required to have business use if they use business use on their personal vehicle, if they are using it in any form for school work, so visiting students, taking students in an emergency, those sort of things. So the motor occasional business use is essentially a separate policy which provides cover for business use for your school staff, so they don't have to use their own policy. Next question on, I cannot find the employer's liability insurance certificate on schools web. We are legally required to display this. Please, can it be made available? It is actually on the schools web. The details are on the schools web. I believe Stephanie updated all those details recently. Fran, I'll make sure that you're sent a copy of it separately, so you've got that. Thank you. And the next one, do we currently have school trip insurance to take pupils off site before the end of term, as we used to have an annual policy? Yes, absolutely. So what we said last September when we renewed the policy with AIG, or took out the policy with AIG, is that we wouldn't be asking schools to provide any details of their trips, that they would automatically be insured unless they were residential or adventurous. So if we're talking about simple day trips off site, places of interest, theme parks, those sort of things, you don't need to tell me about them. If those trips are going ahead after the 1st of September, then yes, you would need to tell me about them. Next question, Rachel. If we empty the safe, where do we store the paying in and checkbooks and credit card? Have you got advice for them?
Obviously, if you've got to keep the safe with items in, then obviously close up the safe and keep those safe. As I say, it's only where you're using a safe predominantly for cash that I would recommend that you leave those open.
Thank you, Rachel. And one more, would you mind confirming that I don't need to ask for additional insurance for a coach trip to the Model Village this month?
Absolutely, you do not need to ask for additional cover. You will automatically be covered for that.
Thank you. And associated equipment for contents, what is included in this? That makes me think it's a longer answer.
No, anything that's computer related, so computers, white screens, overhead projectors, printers, teachers' laptops, pupils' computer equipment, and then everything else. So if it's computer related, that would be in one figure, then everything else the other. So everything else would be your tables, chairs, paper, library books, sports equipment.
Thank you, Rachel. I am new to my role and have submitted some insurance claims for staff sickness. How or when will I know if they have been approved by the insurer?
You should know relatively quickly. If you send me details of those ones, I'm quite happily chase those up and make sure they're going through okay. Generally speaking, we don't get to know about your claims unless there's an issue on the claim and they're referring back to me for some guidance. I've got nothing outstanding at present from the insurers.
And the last one that's come in, Rachel, is there any issues with sickness insurance payouts, as we're still waiting for November and December 20 payments? They've had emails to say authorised, but not the money. Right,
I will double check on that one for you. Becky, can you confirm what school you are at? And then what I can do is check with insurers and find out what the issue is and get that pushed through for you.
Okay, that concludes everything. Thank you very much, Rachel. That's very informative as always. We are now on track for a coffee break, ladies and gentlemen, so please do stretch your legs, take a comfort break. The time is now 10:34. I'm going to ask you to be back at 10:40 for that all important property update from our colleague John Collins. Thank you. Take a break.